Well, good evening, everybody. I am live in 11 seconds. Thank you all for tuning in. We are having some technical difficulties. Thank you all for tuning in. If you please wouldn't mind going ahead and commenting where you're from. We are having technical difficulties with the sound. Hopefully we're figured out. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right. So hopefully everybody will hear you clearly without any extra noise, right? All right. Well, this evening must be going to be a very special and powerful evening for somebody because things are working against us already. So if you're joining us, I see we have 3 people. Please go ahead and put in the comment section where you're tuning in from. We're going to do this. I think that's actually my wife posting in, tuning in to where she's watching. I don't know, I moved. I know you were from Southern Cal, right, Randi?
Southern California. Moved 3 years ago.
Yeah, and you didn't experience a lot of hurricanes, I'm sure.
No. The weather was crazy. I was born, but I don't know what's going on with the weather here. It's confusing. It's hot, cold, it's fall.
Well, I thought I'd be moving away from hurricanes from Virginia Beach, but we've experienced now. This is the second one, so we're having torrential downpours here in Nashville, and it's going to rain all night tonight and even into the morning. And I think all day tomorrow.
Yay! And our church is home, so that's great.
It was a very sleepy day for me.
Good for you.
Hey, there's Miss Beverly. She's in Juliet. Yay. It's great to have you all. So if you haven't already, please just comment in where you are, where you're tuning in from. And here in a few minutes, we are going to start our session for the night. Here's somebody else from Mount Juliet. So we got Tennessee representing tonight. Everybody's local. Woo! Hey.
Hey, Joy.
So yeah, I'm flipping through these things. We had some light issues tonight here in our house, and you had sound issues. So we're gonna
still have here. I'm a little away. We're still working on it. My behind the scenes kind of.
Yeah. The kids like doing the behind the scene blooper reels when we do the videoing and stuff. So, there was one Stump the Pastor. I took too long answering it, and the kids were like, "Dad, you got to do that one again."
Oh,
so
true.
Yeah. And they count my ums, and they're counting right now. I'm like on 10 already. Well, we're going to start here just in a few more minutes. And again, if you haven't already, please chat in where you're tuning in from this evening. And my wife, Rachel, she's on the Facebook and replying to everything. And so as we move further in, please don't be shy. We want to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments or experiences, please do that. We're going to post them up here. So we have like a dialogue with me, with Miss Randi, and with you. We're here to provide this service and this ministry for you to help you, just deal with everything that we're dealing with COVID. And it's, I love the fall, but I don't like how it's dark all the time. It's dark at 5. Yeah, so that's going to start this Sunday. Ugh. And that hurts me more. Gaining an hour hurts me more than losing an hour in the spring. So All right, well, we're 5 minutes into here, and let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for tuning in. If you still want to, please write in the comment section where you're tuning in from tonight, and then be able to feel free to dialogue as we're talking and as Randi is singing. To just type in, and then when we get to the dialogue question, we want to hear from you and discuss the things that you would want to discuss. This is, again, like I said just a little bit earlier, this is from you. This is for you. This is our ministry to yours. And so just welcome. This is a ministry out of Pleasant Grove United Methodist Church in Pleasant Grove, or in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I'm Pastor Brandon Gilmore, and this is Randi Driscoll. She is a singer-songwriter and our music director here at Pleasant Grove, and we're very blessed. Yeah. And her husband is Andrew, and he is behind the scenes working frantically to try to fix all our sound issues.
Get our echo going. We don't know what's going on here.
The echo gone, yeah.
Can you just turn on the computer a little bit?
So tonight we're starting with reflections. Hindsight is 2020, reflections on COVID-19, and looking at what we're experiencing through COVID, being socially distanced. This ministry is coming out of my house and Miss Randi's house because we are now worshiping online only due to the rates of COVID. And so we want to be safe. Methodists, we have one of our things that we say is do no harm. And so we want to make sure we're not providing any harm. When people are going to the sanctuary, we're supposed to be a safe place to worship. And so we're all dealing with different results from COVID. And so tonight we're going to be, last week we looked at exile, and tonight is another thing that comes out of exile, and that's a lament. And I don't know about you, but when I grew up, there were some churches and denominations that would say that Christians shouldn't question God. You can't question God. It's God's will. You can't be angry with God because everything is God's perfect will. And this is to have that mindset as I've grown and as I've read all of Scripture multiple times and studied. This is not a complete view of what the Bible teaches us. In fact, there are entire books dedicated to lament, to anger, and to questioning if God is there, if God is deaf, if God is powerless. There's a whole book dedicated to Lamentations, which to lament means, as a noun, it's a passionate expression of grief or sorrow, and as a verb, it means to mourn. And so we're allowed to bring these deep, deep expressions of grief or sorrow and mourning to God. And the book that has all of this is Lamentations. And then there are a lot of Psalms. Historically, this book of Lamentations was written by Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. It was written right after Babylon came in and destroyed the temple, destroyed Jerusalem. And as I was reading and preparing for this week, the Babylonians, when they did something, they did it right. I mean, they leveled everything to the ground. And when we look at Nehemiah, when he came back to build, he had to build the walls and everything else in a different location because the pre-existing walls in the temple, they didn't even know where, they couldn't even figure where it is at. And there's no archaeological evidence of that old first temple. So when the Babylonians came in and destroyed everything, they really did obliterate it. And so you see all of this mourning, all of this grieving, all of this weeping being poured out to God. And there are elements of lament, of mourning, and as I would say, as you take your grief and sorrow and questions to God and anger to God, there's a pattern. We see it in Scripture. And so all the laments, whether they're a psalm or the book of Lamentations, you address God's character first. I know that you're the God that hears me. I know that you're the God that maybe is afar right now, but you hear me when I cry to you. That an individual expresses their emotional pain. And there was this one psalm that is like, I've been crying all night. And I've cried so many tears that I have no more tears to express, or no more tears that are forming. And that's this intense grief and this intense sorrow. And so the person who was writing the psalm, they were going through really, really intense grief. And then we can learn that we can give God all our pain and all our questions and all our anger. There is one of the most difficult Psalms to wrestle with is where it says, God, I am so angry. I just want you to take the Babylonian babies' heads and bash them on rocks. That's a lot of anger that somebody's given to God, that you're so angry that you're wanting even the babies of your enemy destroyed. So we're allowed to take all of these questions. God, do you hear me? God, are you even there? Are you even capable of doing and acting? And are you powerless? We can take the pain, the sorrow, and all the questions and all the anger to God. We can give that. God can take it. And God is patient with us. And I think he ultimately does want to comfort us because that's who he is. And the thing that I've learned by taking my pain and my sorrow, my questions, even me as a pastor, I have things that go on in my life. I have painful experiences. I have questions. I have doubts. And I even have anger. And I've learned that you always end your lament with hope or trust in God. And we see it again and again in the Psalms, but after all of this, after they expressed all their sorrow and grief and all that, but yet my hope is in you, Lord. And then one of the famous quotes we have from the book of Lamentations, the steadfast love of the Lord never ends. It's new every morning. And after all of this grief, they're ending in that hope. And that's kind of how to frame, I think, theologically correct grief, anger, and pain and questioning. And so Miss Randi's going to sing a song here. It's entitled Faith, and it's written and performed by Randi. And I'm going to turn it over. And before I turn it over to her, I want to talk about somebody we probably all know, Dolly Parton. Last week she was on. I just
Colbert. You said
Stephen Colbert. And she started breaking out into a song that her mama sang to her, Mary Beneath with the Willow. And Stephen Colbert just started crying. He was so moved by that song. And one of the things he says, sometimes we just need a good cry. And that's why we're doing the music. That's why we're doing this with Randi, is because, that emotional thing that he was experiencing came through song. And like we said last week, that music is the language of the soul. It penetrates into the soul. And so sometimes we just need a good cry. I do know that when my dad passed away, I felt like I had to be the strong one. Hardly ever cried during his funeral. Even gave a eulogy and committed his ashes to the Ohio River. But I remember just months after that, I just had this purging cry, and I had to get all my mourning out. And that really, sometimes Stephen is right. Sometimes you just need a good cry to purge all of that out. And I mentioned all that because that came through song. And that's why we have Randi here. That's why I'm really excited for us to hear her song. And so now I'm going to turn it over to her.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're having some audio issues. I hope too bad for this one. You can hear me. I hear you, but I think hopefully you can hear me. This is a song that was written when I went through a really dark period. It was right after my grandmother had passed away, who was a huge part of my life. She raised me until I was 5. I lived with her. My parents were in the picture too. And I found out shortly after she passed that I was pregnant with my daughter, which was a blessing. Except that we had some very serious complications, and we almost lost her in the first trimester early. And I was scared. And I thought about all the times that I've been scared and how the one thing that has carried me through is my faith. And so I thought this was an appropriate song to sing tonight. I have turned to it many times when I have poured out my heart in the moments when you're whining, where you're in the moments where you can't make sense of this plan. And we've talked about that too. You've talked about that in church service. So anyway, I hope we'll be able to hear this. It's a very special song to me. And it's The wind was strong, I couldn't bear. You said, hold on, I didn't know what that meant. So you carried me. The storm was fierce, the ship blew aground, the waves crashed deep, and the mast blew down, but you were there for me. And when I thought all hope was gone, when I am lost and fear has settled in, my hands are tied, I'm weak, my body's thin. I fall down and beg you for your grace. I don't have much, but I have this. I have my faith. I have my faith. The race was long, and I grew tired, and I fell short of the finish line. But you ran for me, and silly me, I thought those footprints were mine. Little did I see you carried me all the time. Yes, you were holding me. And when I thought all hope was gone, when I am lost and fear has settled in, my hands are tired, I'm weak, my body's thin. Yeah, I fall down and beg you for your grace. I don't have much, but I have this. I have my faith. Sometimes I have to run away when I've cried all night and I've cried all day. I know in the silence, in the silence, in the silence I can pray. When I am lost and fear is settled in, my hands are tired, I'm weak, my body's thin. I fall down and beg you for your grace. I don't have much, but I have this. I have my faith. I don't have much, but I have this. I have faith. I have faith. I have my faith.
Beautiful song. Oh,
Thank you, Pastor. I still get people ask if I cry sometimes when I lyrics to my own lyrics. So in songs I haven't sung in a while, that happens. Especially the part about being carried, that'll idea that the two footprints and one was holding you. I really believe that in times like this, we have to turn to what we've known. Like we have to dig deep in, no matter how bad it gets, and understand that we have faith to pull us through, and we're allowed to cry. I mean, in that song, I talk about running away to pray. I talk about crying, my eyes out all night and day. And like you said in your opening, that's allowed, right? We're allowed to show that. What is it? Vulnerability, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know.
You're showing you're human.
Right.
There's I think some of the thought of you can't cry, you can't mourn. Does that mean you got to overcome everything? And the reality is, Christ has overcome everything. We don't have to worry about that. We can be vulnerable. We need grace. We need strength. That's why Jesus died on the cross. That's why God sent God's Holy Spirit to us. So God allows us to be human. And I think when we don't acknowledge our humanity and our weakness and our vulnerabilities, then we're really in danger of cheapening God's grace. I think it's Dietrich Bonhoeffer has a book called Cheap Grace. He talks a lot about that we cheapen that grace when we try to do everything ourselves. We need to be human. That grief you talked about, like crying all day and all night, those are, I think when we're all honest, I think we've all had those times in our life where we've been that way. And I think I'll never forget reading a book about those times where you are experiencing that. That's when your faith, and I think it's more trust in God, gets strengthened.
It's trusting. Absolutely. I think so too. And not easy, but that's when you have to kind of go back to, I always go to a better time when I was stronger, and I try to, in those moments, look back and say, okay, I'm writing a new song right now that I'm sure we'll do on one of our Wednesdays, and it's called It's a God Thing. And it's basically the idea of these little signs that you get, right? Where you sort of know when you least expect it. And I feel like sometimes when I'm at my bottom, I think back to the times when I was feeling empty and something happened to reaffirm. It could have been a little thing, a call from a stranger, a kindness from a stranger, a call from a friend, a sign, and it makes you realize that there's hope. Because I think that's part of it too, especially right now. Yeah. I think it's faith and also hope. All these things we have to turn to get us through this really hard time that we're going through, where people are experiencing the ultimate test. I think one of them is when you lose people, right? That's the real test. It's hard. I'm sure you have a lot. I'm sure you get asked about that a lot, about how to cope with when you've lost your, cousin, friend, brother, grandparent, to this horrible disease.
Yeah. Okay. I just kind of got the axe there because they said the sound is just really bad for all of us. So I don't know if it might be us here in Tennessee. I do know that when it has a lot of rain, the Wi-Fi is not good.
Or the power goes out.
Yeah, we get that too here as well. But I want to kind of end on, we wanted to talk about lament and grief, because a lot of us are lamenting and grieving, mourning that we can't do things the way we're used to doing it. Worship, we're mourning not being able to worship together. Some are mourning loss of jobs. Some are mourning just loss of just being able to live life normally. And I think some of the things that we're experiencing is anger, misplaced anger. And I think we're all kind of angry and saddened at the new lifestyle we have to have because of COVID. And so I'm hoping that the lament psalms can really help us to redirect anger, questioning, and sorrow, and provide a channel, a faithful channel to give all these things to God. So for those of you who have still stuck around, we thank you. Just want to remind you, we'll send out reminders that this Sunday is going to be All Saints Sunday. We're going to get all this stuff worked out. cross our fingers. To have a live special worship service on Facebook, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. Central Time. And we're going to be working that out. And then don't forget to turn your clocks back as well, where we get that extra hour of sleep and it gets darker a lot sooner. So again, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.